both parties in both chambers have reached an agreement that will reduce the deficit and avoid default, a default that would have had a devastating effect on our economy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Mickle. The debt ceiling deadline is now less than 1 day away, and after a weekend of frenzied negotiations, President Obama and congressional leaders say they have a deal. But two more hurdles remain: the House and the Senate. The deal raises the debt ceiling through next year and calls for $2.4 trillion in deficit reduction over the next 10 years. The president says it is not the plan he preferred, but Majority Leader Harry Reid calls it a remarkable compromise.
Not only because of what it does, but because of what it prevents. A first ever default on the full faith and credit of the United States.
There is now a framework to review that will ensure significant cuts in Washington spending.
We're not done yet. I want to urge members of both parties to do the right thing and support this deal with your votes over the next few days.
We all may not be able to support it, or none of us may be able to support it, but we'll wait and see, and we're open to what comes down because, again, the stakes are very high.
Debate in both chambers have been taking place today. A vote is expected anytime in the next 24 hours. Now, the passage of a deal still might be moot. Moody's is one of the agencies that determines credit ratings. It says even with a debt ceiling increase, the level of debt reductions called for in each of the plans doesn't do much for long-term debt. So the organization announced it will likely downgrade the U.S. credit rating even with a deal in the works. Well, thousands of people are getting pink slips today. And good news for women who take the pill. We have that and much more in tonight's Back to Business. A major bank is cutting 5,000 jobs. HSBC made that announcement today while reporting earnings for the first half of this year. The company is also selling nearly 200 of its branches in upstate New York. The moves are all part of a cost reduction program that started in May. Pharmaceutical giant Merck & Company is cutting 13,000 jobs. That's about 14% of its workforce. Merck is making the cuts, as are others in the industry, to prepare for losing patent protection on blockbuster medicines. Next year, Merck loses protection on its top-selling drug, asthma remedy Singulair. Major changes are coming to women's health. Starting today, all private insurance companies in the U.S. will cover preventative services without a deductible or copay. That means women will get items like birth control pills free of charge, including emergency contraception like the so-called morning after pill. According to a recent report by the Institute of Medicine, contraceptive use saved the U.S. nearly $20 billion in 2002. The auto industry is poised to lead the economic recovery in the U.S. A new survey shows auto executives will do more hiring and more capital spending than any other sector next year. 62% of auto executives plan to hire next year. That's compared to an average of 52% of executives across all other sectors. Harry Potter, the boy wizard, is also the boy billionaire. Distributor Warner Brothers says Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 has grossed $1 billion worldwide. It's the first in the franchise to reach that level, and that's tonight's Back to Business. Well, recently the U.S. Postal Service delivered quite a blow, one that has a tiny town in Florida fighting back. The Postal Service is downsizing following an $8.5 billion loss last year. 3,600 post offices are on a closure list, including the one in Evanston, Florida. It's a post office inside a general store where people go not only to get mail, but also to get their daily fill of town news with neighbors and friends. As See a New Yorker from our affiliate GTN reports, this tiny town is taking up a big fight to save the post office and hang on to an old-fashioned way of life that seems to be slowly dying.
It's Florida's oldest post office, affectionately known as the Wooden Swink or simply just the Evanston Community Store.
We come here for the news, we come here for vegetables, for our mail, for the kids to play. I mean, this is just kind of our social point of Evanston.
And of course, you can get your mail, grab your packages, or just chew the fat.
What happens? We'll be down the hall like that.
Yep, and everything.
But to the Wood family, it's their legacy. It's been in the family for 4 generations. And if the family business that went from a mom and pop shop to what is now a historic landmark closes, the Woods say the community will lose too.
My great-grandfather took over the building around 1906, and after that his father, Fred Wood I, was a postmaster here for over 40 years, and my father's been here after that, running the stores and what, and my mother was also a postmaster here, and now I've recently moved back to the area, and I'm involved in making sure the building stays just the way it is.
These P.O. boxes are the originals from 1882. The postmaster tells us there's a family right here in Evanston that's had the same one for over 100 years.
Sue Wood recently retired as postmaster after 32 years, and she says she's seen it all.
One day I came down to open up, and there was 250 head of cattle out front, and I had to herd them away so I could open the post office.
She says a fragrant fruit takes the cake.
This fella had mailed a coconut from Hawaii, and it was so interesting.
Fond memories of a place she considers her second home. Those near and far say they'll do what they can to keep their doors open, now calling on their elected officials for help.
So the people who come into that post office now, who pay money for a box to rent, now they're going to be given free service where we're going to have to hire somebody to go deliver mail to them. And if they need postal service, they're going to have to now travel to another town. It's the only post office in the town of Evanston. So I understand the need, and we really have to look at saving money any way we can at the federal level, but I don't think this is the one that they should be looking at.
Until further notice, Fred Wood and family will continue to serve their community. They're hoping their and everyone's post office in Evanston will stay open for many more generations to come. Sia New Yorker reporting for INN News.
Time for global news now. Monsoon rain is causing mayhem across parts of India. At least one person has drowned near Mumbai, where the heavy rain has swamped several low-lying areas. The water has also flooded many homes. Today marks the beginning of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. It's traditionally a period of showing goodwill toward men, where Muslims fast between dawn to dusk. However, violence and unrest has recently erupted in many Muslim countries, such as Egypt, Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen, and Libya. A memorial service took place today for the victims of the recent terror attacks in Norway. Here you see the event held in the Norwegian capital. Members of Norway's royal family, the prime minister, as well as members of parliament were among the attendees. Authorities have identified all 77 victims, whose ages range from 14 to 61. The suspect is being held in prison in solitary confinement. It's a brand new start for Thailand. Today marks the first day for the country's new parliament. Yingluck Shinawatra is expected to become Thailand's first female prime minister. She will likely be chosen as premier since her party won all of the elections held in July. And that's your global news now.
Well, the birds are back in town. The San Francisco Zoo held its annual March of the Penguins to welcome 5 chicks back to the colony. They successfully completed several weeks of fish school. Animal keepers trained them how to swim and hand-fed them so they would be used to interacting with people. Up next, looking ahead to the next Olympics and who really hopes to make a splash with a big comeback. Plus a race that's already challenging, but beating the heat instead of the competition was key here, where this took place. Coming up next on INN. And we want to remind you, INN News is on Facebook. Now you can also find us on Twitter at INN News Network, and we're on YouTube. We're reaching out to you so you can reach out to us. INN News is coming right back.